Welcome to a quick demo on CRUD operations in SharePoint using CSOM. We will create a simple garden subsite, then create a fruits list, add a column, location, add items, and update items. So the first step is to get connected using the Microsoft SharePoint client context. Make sure you have downloaded the SharePoint Online Client components from Microsoft site, and then we will use this code and get connected and store that in the context variable. After that, let's just get started and try to create the garden subsite. So I've connected to the dev site, and then we'll create the new garden subsite. For creating the garden subsite, we call the web creation information object, then update the title and the URL with garden CSOM, then call the context.web.webs.add with the creation information and call the execute query. So this is for web. This applies to most of the objects in SharePoint. If it is list, you use list creation information and update the title and the template. And if it is, and then when you are adding, you use context.web.list.add. If it is list item, you use list item creation information and then call the list item, get the list and then list.items.add. And then you call the execute query. So first we create the subsite. After that, we'll update our context to the new garden CSOM site. So let's run this. After a little wait, the garden subsite is created with the new site template. Let's go back and now update the context. Right now, if we check the context, let's check the context. So it shows the dev site. Let's change that to the new garden CSOM site. Now it's updated. Now let's create the list called fruits. So we call the list creation information, give the title, and the template type we call the Microsoft.SharePoint.client.list template type, and we call the generic list. If you want to create an other list, you can just select from other templates available. Let's go ahead with the generic list now, and then we call context.web.list.add with the info. And if you want to update any other property like description or enable content type, you can do that using the property. Finally, we'll call the update and execute query. So let's just run this. So it's created. And now we'll create a column called location. So we first read the fruits list using the getByTitle method. And then we load the fruits and execute query. So the best way to create the fruits is using the column is using field XML. So you can create various columns like text, multi-line, or you can create a calculated columns. So that is a deep topic, but for now we'll just focus on a simple text column. So you can change the type to what you want, and sometimes for some columns it is little complex. So let's just stick with a simple column now. Text field name is location, and we give the field type and the display name, and we call the add field as XML method, and then we call the execute query. Then the column location is added. Sorry, I forgot to call the read the fruits list. Let's read the fruits list. Now it's done. Let's go back to the site. Now the fruits list is created. We have the column location. So what else we can do? Now we'll try to add the items. For that we call the list item creation information, and we call the list fruits and call the add item method. Then we update each column like the title and location with the value Washington and the various fruit names. So we use the for each loop, and once all the items are added, we call the execute query to make sure that the list items are added. So once it is added, we can go and check in the website. Since this is the online SharePoint, make sure you have the proper internet connection. Sometimes if the connection error is there, it might fail. So let's go back to the list. the items are added. Now we have to read the fruit details. So reading the fruit details can be done using Camel Query. So there are various ways like searching the list or just reading the fruit details. So we'll just use the Camel Query. We'll call the create all items query, getting all the items. And for each item, we'll just try to display the names using the field values property. So we call the Camel Query. So Camel Query is always recommended. It is efficient, and though it might be a little tricky, let's try to run the code and see all the items. So we see ID, title, and location. Now, if you want to get a particular item, we have to use the, let's try the Camel Query itself, where you use the view query field ref where and then equal to value. So this is similar to select star from fruits where title equal to apple. So if you are finding it difficult, you can view the, you get the, go to the list and get the view schema XML property. And if you want to view the XML property of any existing list, you can create a view and get the schema XML property of the view from CSOM and go ahead. For now, there is so much Camel query you can do. Just get the view query, get the field ref, and set. And if you want to get only 100 items, use row limit. And within the query tag, get the column is the title, and the equal to where equal to operation, we are comparing the field name title, and the value is of type text and apple. So you can use this particular code based on the column name and the value to get one particular value. Once we get the values, we call the get items of the corresponding Camel query. So Camel query is useful even in JavaScript coding. You might have to use Camel query. It might not really die that soon. So it is recommended also for high efficiency coding. And once that is done, we can get the item and update the property like location to Australia. We call the update method and call the execute query. So let's try to run this. So let's go back. Now it's updated to Australia. Now let's try to delete the item mango. So we have mango. Similarly, let me just search for the mango items. So in case you are finding this difficult, I would recommend you just go ahead for REST URL or the PNP method showcased in other videos. But I would highly recommend if you're doing big projects and this, if you want to go depth into SharePoint and you love coding, this is highly recommended. And for a long time, this might not change. So it is recommended to call the recycle method than the delete method because it goes to the recycle bin. So never do a delete operation since it might scare the users. So let's call the recycle method and call the execute query. Now let's go back and see if the mango item is there, and the mango is gone. So as a quick summary, we saw how to create a garden subsite, create fruits list, add a column, items and update items using CSOM. CSOM is extremely powerful. I've been like sharing some updates on LinkedIn in small articles just for CSOM. It's really powerful. There is so much you can do apart from simple list creation. You can add users, update users, taxonomy operations. There's just so much you can do, even something related to social media. It's just immense. The power of CSOM is immense. So this concept, if you understand, if you're preparing for the certification and all, a lot of questions come from literally the object model. The object model of SharePoint will not change, and hence I've created a specific course for the crude because no matter how the way you develop the apps, that keeps changing starting from server side, and so much has changed like server side, add-ins, sandbox. They keep changing. The way of coding the web parts keep changing, but the foundation never changes. So if you're planning to be a SharePoint developer, so I recommend that you listen to this SharePoint crude course. It's very powerful because it's not going to change the basics, the object model through REST API or through CSOM or server-side object model or JSON or JSON or whatever technique. The object model concepts will not change. we have seen for simple subsite list items and list items. The same can be applied for other objects like users or any object based on your needs. Some of them may not be applicable using REST, and most of them can be done with CSOM. Hence, CSOM is the most powerful. Hope you enjoy SharePoint coding. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.